Hey, what's up, St. Teresa? My name is Chase Krause, and welcome to this week's episode of The Ark. All right, y'all, Lent is just around the corner. February 17th is Ash Wednesday. A few things to keep in mind. First is that remember that Ash Wednesday is not a holy day of obligation, but it's still an amazing opportunity to begin this Lenten season with the church, with the strength that Jesus provides in the Eucharist. The second thing is that remember to abstain from meat on Ash Wednesday. Also, remember it's a day of fasting, so it's one of 2 days of fasting throughout the entire calendar year, entire liturgical year. So Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. Remember, it's 1 full meal and 2 small meals that don't equal the full meal, and none of them can contain meat, right? But fish, totally cool. But this first reading is very Lenten-esque, even though it's not officially Lent yet. And it's from the book of Job. Job spoke, saying, "Is not man's life on earth a drudgery? Are not his days those of hirelings? He is a slave who longs for the shade, a hireling who waits for his wages. So I have been assigned months of misery, and troubled nights have been allotted to me. If in bed I say, when shall I arise? Then the night drags on. I am filled with restlessness until the dawn. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle. They come to an end without hope. Remember that my life is like the wind. I shall not see happiness again." Man, I think reading this reading, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like, we've all been, I feel like we've all been at the same place as Job. We've all had those times in our lives when things just, they don't seem to go our way. If you've never read the book of Job, I really encourage you to read it this Lenten season. It's a beautiful book. And I think one of the reasons it's actually one of my favorite books of the Old Testament is because it shows that God, the Bible, our faith, it doesn't shy away from the fact or pretend like sorrows and miseries and hardships don't happen. Because they do. Obviously they do. This passage just, a small glimpse into Job's hardships and miseries. And he feels like, am I ever going to be happy again? And, coming up on the 1-year anniversary of this whole COVID craziness, and I feel like there's a lot of people that I know that feel the same way. Like, man, are things ever going to get back to normal? Are we ever going to be happy again? Are we ever going to do the things we want to do again? Even though maybe we know that, one day we will, but it just doesn't feel like that sometimes. But the question is, what do you do in those times of desolation, sorrow, and hopelessness? How do we respond when those types of situations happen? And how can we support each other as a family during those times? So let's chat about that in this first round of discussion questions. All right, our second reading comes from St. Paul's first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. "Brothers and sisters, if I preach the gospel, this is no reason for me to boast, for an obligation has been imposed on me. And woe to me if I do not preach it. If I do so willingly, I have a recompense. But if unwillingly, then I have been entrusted with the stewardship. What then is my recompense? That when I preach, I offer the gospel free of charge, so as not to make full use of my right in the gospel. Although I am free in regard to all, I have made myself a slave to all, so as to win over as many as possible. To the weak I became weak, to win over the weak. I have become all things to all, to save at least some. All this I do for the sake of the gospel, so that I too may have a share in it." Question. When you talk to people, what tends to be the theme of the conversation? Does it usually involve you asking questions about the other person? Or do you just kind of want to talk about yourself and the things that you want to talk about? I think this is a temptation for all of us because it's so easy and comfortable to talk about ourselves or the things that we're comfortable with. Yet, St. Paul's telling us here to become all things to all people, to meet people where they're at, to seek to understand them as people. Why? In order to accompany them, right? St. Paul is teaching us here, like I said, to meet people where they're at. Become genuinely friends with people in order to spread the gospel. It's not a utilitarian relationship. You don't become friends with somebody just to evangelize them. No, you become friends with them because they're a person and they're deserving of love. And your hope and your desire for the friendship is that they may encounter Christ through you. As Christians, our goal isn't to just jam ideologies down people's throats, right? But rather it's to, like I said, accompany them, to walk with them, to journey with them. And sometimes that involves talking about stuff we don't really want to talk about or don't know much about. But to recognize that in order to meet people where they're at, is to ask questions, to be curious, to see Christ in them, and to walk with them along the way. All right, y'all, our gospel comes from Mark 1. On leaving the synagogue, Jesus entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Simon's mother-in-law lay sick with a fever. They immediately told him about her. He approached, grasped her hand, and helped her up. Then the fever left her, and she waited on them. And when it was evening after sunset, they brought to him all who were ill or possessed by demons. The whole town was gathered at the door. He cured many who were sick with various diseases, and he drove out many demons, not permitting them to speak because they knew him. Rising very early before dawn, he left and went off to a deserted place where he prayed. Simon and those who were with him pursued him, and on finding him said, "Everyone is looking for you." He told them, "Let us go on to the nearby villages, that I may preach there also. For this purpose I have come." So he went into their synagogues, preaching and driving out demons throughout the whole of Galilee. So this might be a very familiar story to a lot of you. We often forget that besides just preach, right? Jesus backed up his preaching with miracles. He drove out demons. Demons were real back in Jesus' day. They're still real today. We still have exorcisms today. And the need for Christ to come into us and drive out our personal sinfulness is just as prevalent. And this is kind of illustrated right before this with the story of Simon's mother-in-law. And anybody who's encountered Christ knows that once you've encountered Christ, once you've encountered truth itself, you have to go out and share, right? You have to go out and serve. That's exactly what Simon's mother-in-law did. Christ healed her, and immediately she went out and served. Immediately she used her health for the sake of others. But a lot of times, this service, it doesn't have to be something dramatic. But if you have health, then the first thing you do as a response is to give of yourself, to serve others. And when you encounter Christ, it's the same thing. You've been healed through the grace of God, so therefore you want to go out and bring him to others, just like Simon's mother-in-law did. Jesus was sent to heal and to save, yet even he put aside time for the Father. Did you catch that? Jesus, after a long day of healing, of preaching, goes aside to a deserted place and he prays. Do you make time for prayer every single day? And I'm not just talking about prayer before meals. I'm not just talking about, right before bed, you say a quick little, "Hey, Lord, thank you for the day." But actually sitting down and carving out time for Jesus every single day. It is way easier said than done, y'all. I totally understand. Yet, Christ is here to set us an example. He was probably exhausted with people all day, healing people all day. Yet at the end of the day, he went aside to a deserted place to spend time with the Father. And I encourage you to do the same this week. Hi, St. Teresa. Thank you so much for joining me this week on the Ark. Remember, Ash Wednesday, February 17th. Make sure to abstain and to fast, and we will see you next time. God bless.